Hey, what's up everybody? Jenazad here. So I just spent about 19 hours playing Wuthering Waves on stream, and I really enjoyed the game overall. I've been excited for this game for about a year and a half, and I was really hoping that Kuro Games would make a super good game because I like Punishing Gray Raven. So when Closed Beta 2 came around, I played about 100 hours of it because I really wanted to get the game down, learn, and I was just having a lot of fun. So when the game released, I was thinking, well, I hope it's in perfect condition. They're adding all sorts of new things. They took a lot of player feedback. That's great. So how good is this game really? Also, if you enjoy this video, please subscribe to the channel because I'm going to be making a lot of Wuthering Waves content overall. So let's first talk about the good, and then we can go to the bad, and then the ugly. So, first, biggest thing in the good, I would say, the combat. I think most people kind of agree with this. The combat in this game is incredibly good feeling. It's very complex for a gacha game. It has a lot of depth for an action game as well. And it also just feels really good. Like when you parry enemies like that, it feels amazing. When you dodge, it feels so impactful. Even though you did something so easy, you feel like a god. Everything has great sound effects, great hit feel. And this is the very first boss you fight in the game. This is literally a tutorial boss, and yet it actually has a little bit of depth to it. Isn't that strange? Most games aren't really going to have something along those lines. And what's really cool is when you get to the higher difficulties, it actually starts to learn new moves. It becomes more aggressive. Hell, it gets a new phase. There's not many games you'll play that actually have so much depth to just the very first boss, and later bosses get crazy. If you actually manage to get to the later game in Wuthering Waves and you start doing hologram bosses and all sorts of other stuff, the bosses start becoming really difficult. They learn all sorts of new moves. They're so strong and fast, and you have to learn their patterns. And there's so much depth to the gameplay that you have to start learning your rotations well, sometimes combos on certain characters. You know, learn how to cut off certain characters' animations by animation canceling by swapping. So there's so much depth to combat that a lot of people probably don't realize until they get to the actual hard places. But the combat is amazing, and I think many people agree on this, even if you're not the biggest fan of this game. Next, another amazing thing about this game, I would say the pull system. In the modern day and age, I think gachas have become more predatory. I think this game does a decent job, even though it does have the 50-50 system, which I don't think is good. So first of all, it has the 40 pull banner where you get a random 5-star. I think that's really good. But more importantly is this beginner's choice banner after. This banner is really important, and most games don't do it. Being able to choose a character you want, no matter what, I think is such a big deal because so many people play these games looking for specific characters they want, and they're not willing to drop thousands of dollars on like the standard banner in the hopes that they get them, or they don't want to spend hours and hours and hours re-rolling. So this is perfect and exactly what they want. How many people wanted someone like Calcharo, but then got Verena and went, I don't want to play that, and then they quit the game. Having something like this makes it so people that are kind of interested in the game get the character they really like, they're really happy, they get invested, and they enjoy the game and they get super into it. I think every gacha game should do this. I think they probably can make money from it, and also it's just good for everybody, really. I think it's a win-win. So I think that's amazing. Also, I think that the pulling overall in this game is good because the pity is 80, which is 10 lower than Genshin, and the pull rates are 0.8%, which is 2.2% higher than Genshin as well. So nicer rates overall. I think it also has a soft pity at around 65 as well. And then you have the weapon banner. The pity is 80, and it's 100% chance of getting the weapon. Wow. Amazing. There's no RNG, no 50-50, nothing. You just get the weapon. That's great. I wish all games did that with everything. In fact, I wish this game did it with the character banner too. But that aside, there's also something really cool in the shop related to pulls. If you go right around here, you can actually get dupes of characters, which is really cool too. So if you save up enough of this currency you get after pulling, then you can actually get an extra copy. That said though, it does take a lot. I think if you're trying to go for one of these characters, it takes approximately 35 pulls worth if you were to convert it into this for one of these dupes. And if it's one of these ones, which costs more for the limited characters, it's more like 45 pulls. So I feel like it's almost more of a whale thing, and free-to-play players will probably convert most of it into actual pulls because you can't buy characters using this unless you've already pulled them once. So people would rather have one of each character than a bunch of dupes on one. But it's still nice to have that option. Another thing, and this is controversial, is I think this game looks really good. And a lot of people would disagree. But I think there's a huge difference between quality and aesthetic. If you zoom in on the characters, they're actually really high quality, good looking models. They're very detailed. The way the light shines off them is good. Some characters you can see like the fabric, how it actually looks and the patterns of it. So I think the models are really, really good quality. And I think it's actually kind of impressive. And same with the world around, I think looks really good when you get more up close and personal to it. But I know a lot of people think it looks too dark and boring and it's just a bit drab. And I understand that. But I will say something that's very cool is the contrast. Like when you look at the city over there, the lights really stick out because everything else is so dark. Now this is a minor example, but there's some places in the game that look really, really good. Like it's super bright and super nice, and the contrast between that and the dark apocalyptic world really, really sticks out, and I think makes it incredible. And I think people underrate that, but it's a bit of a personal preference thing, so obviously you can't convince everybody. Also, one other thing I have to say is, why the hell are the husbandos in this game so damn hot and jacked and detailed? Where's all the baddies, huh? Where's all the hot waifus to be able to use right now that are top tier good DPS? I want to use those characters. Can Yinlin just come out already? What's going on here? But that's besides the point. Now, let's talk about the bad of this game. Well, I would say the biggest bad thing is the story, and there's a lot of complaints about the story. Why? Yap, 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 and a bunch of wasted time, a bunch of things that don't make sense, a bunch of words that you have to remember in terms and all sorts of other things, and it's a whole mess. You wake up, you start getting yapped at. The characters start talking, you fight an enemy, they talk to you. Fight an enemy, they talk to you. Fight Crownless, they talk to you. You have to go to the city, and then they talk to you some more. They're just talking your ear off. It's frustrating. You should be able to immediately go into this world, start exploring, play the game, do whatever you want. Also, they do too much tell, not show. You should be showing people cool things, maybe interesting art and background stuff while explaining basic things. That's understandable. They start throwing around a bunch of terms in Chinese, which a lot of players don't know Chinese. And then not to mention they're using a bunch of terms like tacit field and like reverse rain and all this stuff. And you're just like, what is happening? Your eyes glaze over because you're not only not really interested in the story, but it's also just saying a bunch of stuff that you don't really understand or care that much about. And that's kind of a huge problem. You want people to get invested early. So I think that they should have done some more interesting like background and cutscenes and stuff and world building rather than just tossing on all this stuff like, oh, you woke up. Oh, now we're doing this. Oh, this person believes in you, and just all that kind of crap. So I understand anyone who has an issue with that. I completed the story today, actually. Did all of it. And it actually gets interesting and good at the very end. But the problem is everything leading up to that is not good. And that's a huge problem. You do a story like Ling Yang's story, holy crap, there's so much talking and it's just frustrating. They have a skip button in this game. That's amazing. Thank you for adding a skip button. Why can't you skip everything though? I understand that you want the cinematic moments to not really be skipped, but if I skip every piece of dialogue leading up to certain cinematics, I have none of the context and I clearly didn't care, so why don't you let me skip this too? I just think it's a bit nonsensical and I don't really understand why they don't let you literally skip everything if you can skip most stuff. Just seems very foolish to me. So story is obviously a huge problem, and I would say that's the biggest bad thing about the game. Now, let's talk about the ugly. Oh boy, the ugly is really serious in this game. This game has a lot of performance issues in a lot of different ways. So first, let's start with the simple things. The volume is kind of messed up. You'll have a character that talks really loudly in combat, but really quietly when out of combat in a conversation. I don't really understand why that is. The volume mixing is just bad. For some reason, when I have sound effect volume like at 70% and voice volume at 70%, voice goes down way more than sound effects. It just doesn't really make any sense. They definitely made some mistakes with this, and it's a little bit annoying. Also, just other things. Why is there no 120 FPS? There was in the beta, and then there was a bug within, they removed it, so they never re-added it. There's not even windowed full screen, which is a bit weird. Also, for some reason, I play on my controller, I can't remap any of the buttons, and then they hotfixed it, but only for Xbox controllers. I mean, you know, a lot of people probably aren't using PS5 controllers, I guess, but that's still a pain, right? Like, please just add something like that. So lots of little things, but then the more serious issue is the crashes, the stuttering, the lag. Some people can't even open the game. Some people can't even download the game. The launcher kicks them. They load into the game. They crash. They load into the game. They crash. They get all sorts of errors. They load into the game. They're at 5 FPS for some reason. Have to mess with the options for like an hour to see if they can actually work at all. And then they realize it's just VSync or something. There's so many problems with even playing the game, and it's kind of inexcusable. Now, when I played Closed Beta 2, it had some issues, but it was really minor. It was like, oh, there's like a little bit of stuttering and like a tiny bit of lag and like really overpopulated weird areas, but I also had a worse computer at the time. So I was like, okay, that makes sense. They'll probably optimize it more. How did it get worse? Like way worse. I'm not really sure what they did or if there's some spaghetti code, but that's a really huge problem. People are just crashing and dying all over, and you have weird graphical glitches and stuff like this too. It just doesn't make any sense. This game definitely needed some more time to really cook in the oven, and it was taken out a little bit too soon. This game has so much promise, but it's held back by all of these little issues, whether it comes down to the story or just simple things like crashes, which is a big problem. And people's first impressions is the most important. Once their first impression is marred, well, then they might not ever come back. Some games are able to make the big comebacks, such as, Cyberpunk or No Man's Sky, and this game can come back from this. Games have come back from worse, right? If the devs actually show they care, they put out like a plan, they talk about what they're fixing, and they actually really put the effort in, I think they can win the community back really hard because there's a lot of unrest at the moment. But it is pretty concerning and it's a very bad look. If they had a smooth launch, I think things would have been a really, really, really big deal for them. But having all these problems doesn't make them look all that good. And if you look on the subreddits, you look at Billy, there's a lot of negativity. Obviously, you can't take all of it seriously, but still, you shouldn't have so much for a launch. I believe that this game truly can be great, and I do believe in Kuro Games, but I really hope that they can actually come out and tell everybody what their plans are and how fast it's going to happen and what the fixes will be, because I don't want this game to fail. I think this game not only is a good competitor to Genshin, and I think having competition is an amazing thing, it drives both to be better, but also it's just a real solid game in its own right. And it's a shame that so many people might not ever even see the end game or really get to enjoy some of the amazing fights at the end, because it's actually so enjoyable once you get there, and a little bit addicting depending on the type of person you are. So it's sad that so many people are saying, I quit because of this, I quit because I'm crashing, I quit because the translation's bad, I quit because I pulled Ling Yang. Understandable, but I really hope that they're able to fix this. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you liked it, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel, and I hope to see you next time.